Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of Burning Boxes and Breaking Chains. The podcast is wrapped around accountability. And today we'll be talking a little bit more about It's My Fault. Joining us today is my buddy, Roderick Jefferson. And Roderick and I are both members of the National Speakers Association, but Roderick is also an internationally recognized keynote and transformational speaker. He's given keynote presentations nationally and in 14 countries globally. So he truly understands the power of sharing real life strategies. And I'm waiting to get a copy of his latest book so I can read it. It's called Stroke of Success. So everybody help me welcome Roderick to the show. Good to see you, my friend.
Thank you, my friend. It's always good to see you, Jeff.
I enjoy our partnership here and our accountability that we do with each other in the different areas of our lives where we're constantly running into each other at events and on Zoom meetings or mastermind meetings like with our buddy Stephen Rowell. So
Absolutely.
So to start this off, and given you've got a wide range of experience in your life too, just like I do. So, but tell me, was there one key point in your life where you looked at a problem and you went, "This was my fault"?
Oh, absolutely. Um, just by way of background for your listeners and your watchers, I spent 30 years in corporate as a senior executive. So got all the way up to senior vice president. I was with companies like AT&T and Evil and CBay and HP and Oracle and yada, yada, yada. And I remember when I got my very first VP title. And I thought, I have arrived, right? As most of us. But here was the problem. I forgot all the things from a humanistic and an empathetic perspective of what took me up the ladder to get to that point. So bad, Jeff, that I actually created this character, not even a persona, but a character that I called RJ. RJ was the quintessential VP. He lived in the right neighborhoods. His kids went to the right schools. He drove the Mercedes. He was, by all accounts, successful. But the more that I fell deeper into that character, one, the more I disliked myself. And secondly, the more enemies that I was creating inside of my own home and at work. So I was literally isolating myself.
Wow. So waking up every day with your sword and shield at the ready, huh?
At ready all the time.
You know, when you said that about the different corporations, I'm reminded of a guy that I knew years ago. He said that he spent 16 years climbing the corporate ladder to success and he was miserable. And then he looked around and he realized his ladder was leaning against the wrong building.
Wrong building. You know what? First of all, that's true. And I can
It's absolutely true, you know.
100%, all right? Because the problem is when we get up to that level and we've worked so hard to get there, the biggest problem is that it becomes that we're defined by what we do, not who we are, and also who we can help.
Amen. Amen. That's a huge thing. I think a lot of us, you know, we get single-minded focus on that, what we think is the goal. And a lot of that stuff is almost like roadkill along the way.
Absolutely.
And then you get there and you look back and go, that's not what's important, guys. You know, I learned a number of years ago, as you know, at the end of the day, yes, I've been in the heating and air conditioning business for 40 years, but at the end of the day, it's just an air conditioner.
That's all.
Without friends and family, you ain't got much in this life. So I focus on that a lot more now than I do anything else, you know. And I don't know about you, but my family keeps shrinking a little bit all the time.
Yeah.
So
all the time. And that's what matters. I lost sight of my why, Jeff. And that's why I say it's my fault and I have to take accountability for it.
Mm-hmm.
My why had always been, as most Southern men ourselves growing up, our job was to provide and protect.
Yep.
Right. But as I moved up the ladder, now I'm flying on corporate jets and helicopters and I'm all over. I'm with, presidents and kings and queens, and that little ugly green thing called ego took over. But I had actually convinced myself that I was doing a better job of providing for them because I had the bigger salary now. I was putting them through vacations, but they didn't know me and I didn't know them. And it didn't really hit me
Mhm.
until I could come home from a trip 2 weeks out on the road. And I told my wife, and we've all been there before, "Man, I am so tired of hotel food. I just want some greasy tacos, just some regular food," right? And my
Real
son
food.
looked at me and he said, "Dad, Thursday's shake and bake night." And now that may not mean a lot to some, so let me explain why it hit me so hard. At that moment, I realized that they had a life around me without me, not because of me, not with me.
Mhm.
They had a whole routine. I was just the guy that flew home, went to the dry cleaners, and flew out again. I might have helped with a little homework here and there, right? Later, I could help with homework over FaceTime, but at that time, it was early in my career, and I was just a direct deposit and benefit holder for them.
I get it. That's the thing, you're talking about the restaurant food is like that's why I make it a point when I travel. I want some local cuisine.
Mhm.
I don't do the chain stuff when I'm traveling. I want to get something I can't get at home. So it
Yeah,
tickled
plus you
me
get a
not to.
chance to immerse yourself in culture.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I remember somebody posted on Facebook one time a year or so ago, said, "What's your favorite food?" And I thought about that for a second, and my answer was, "What city am I in?"
Oh, I love that answer. I'm gonna take that one, Jeff.
All right, give me credit once or twice, then you can have it.
You already know that.
But ironically, I did that one time in one of my favorite cities, New Orleans, and was at a restaurant not far from the airport, getting ready to leave. And I didn't want the side that they had. They had coleslaw. I said, "What else do you have?" And they said, "Well, we have some potato salad." I said, "Is it any good?" She goes, "Yeah, it's pretty good." I said, "All right, I'll try that." And she brought it out to me and set it down. And I tried it after she walked away. And when she walked back, I said, "I have a question." I said, "And I know the answer is no, because my mother passed away earlier this year or last year at that time." And I said, "But is my mother in that kitchen?" It's the only restaurant, I swear, Roger, is the only restaurant I have found in the country that
Wow,
serves my mother's potato salad
that's amazing.
because it's
That's a good
made with
reason to go
mashed
back to
potatoes.
to New Orleans right there.
Oh, yeah, it's made with mashed potatoes, not cubed potatoes, with
Oh,
mayonnaise, mustard, onions, eggs, and dill relish, not sweet relish.
really?
Oh, yeah, and it's best served hot. I loved it when my mom made it hot because she did it with mashed potato. I've been back 6 times, same restaurant. Kid you not.
Yeah, you know what I've learned, Jeff, is now as I'm older and I look at this age and stage of life, whenever I'm going somewhere, I reach out because with National Speakers Association, we've got, compadres everywhere. I
Everywhere.
reach out and one, I always want to try and connect with them as you do,
Mhm.
because I've seen the pictures that you put up on social media, right? But I also ask them the same question. Where do the locals go? Where do you go to eat? Not the touristy, trendy stuff, right? If it's,
Mhm.
and I've been able to taste all kinds of food like your mom's potato salad, different than I've ever had, right? But
Mhm.
because you open your mind and you go, if it's good enough for my friends, then you know what? I should be open minded enough to go and at least try it. Not saying I've liked everything I've had, but
Mhm.
we're seasoned guys, I'll say. And
Yep.
Mama used to say, you can't say you don't like something until you've tried it.
Absolutely.
For food, that
Well, I'll
doesn't
tell you,
work for everyone.
I'll give
Some
them a
things you
shout
just
out.
know you're not like.
It's Harbor Oyster and Seafood in Metairie, Louisiana, right off the interstate.
Battery.
Can't miss it. And their potato salad is really awesome. Now I can make mom's here,
Mhm.
but sitting there, I can sit there and enjoy the potato salad without the work and think about my mother. So
So it
that's an
connected
awesome
to
experience.
memory for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, and I'm grateful and blessed to be able to travel like I do. And I've started, and this may be a point for somebody listening to this. If you do get to travel and you're blessed by being traveled, not looking at it as a chore,
Mhm.
when I put contacts in my phone now, in the notes, I put what city they're in. So the next time I go to that city, I can bring up my phone and look and say, who's here? so I can
Mhm.
reach out and talk to people. I mean, I had lunch with Dr. Bill last weekend
I
in
saw that.
Scottsdale, Arizona.
I saw
You
that.
know, got to be able to meet him face to face one time. It was pretty awesome. Instead of just seeing him on Zoom calls. I mean, that's how I remembered that Dr. Willie Jolly was in the Baltimore or the DC area. So I had
Mhm.
dinner with him last year. He's actually going to be the next episode I drop next Friday is going to be Dr. Jolly.
Give my love to our friend, will you?
Oh, I will, man. I will. So that's the cool thing to me about travel is being able to go out there and yes, and because I have held myself accountable through my life, and people, I'm sad to say, I don't think some people realize how liberating that is to have
Yeah.
that mindset that you are accountable. Um, and you and I were talking last week. I did an article for a magazine. I'm looking forward to seeing the proof of it. It's about embracing change.
Love that.
And it's not being excited that everything's going to change, just accepting the fact that there's change is inevitable. But accept the fact and revel in the fact that you're the one that's accountable and you're the one in charge on how you respond to
That's one of the few things that we have
it.
control of, right? And,
Absolutely.
and change, the only thing about change is constant, right?
It
And,
is
and I
constant.
think there's another piece that just hit me as I was listening to you talk, Jeff, and that is it takes a lot of energy to constantly blame other people and to
Oh,
and concoct stories and unnecessary emotions and wasted energy. When most of the time, the old adage of if you're pointing at someone, then there's you know three of them pointing back at you.
absolutely. Absolutely. So you're three times as responsible for that incident than the one. So,
And that
you
most of the
know,
time isn't that the truth.
it is.
If
If
you
you
really,
truly,
really look at it honestly and introspectively.
that's why I constantly try to I work to get across to people. I don't like the word try because that's like saying I'm gonna get up out of this chair. Either I'm going
Right.
to get up or I'm not. Try is an irrelevant word or an illogical word.
Yeah.
I work hard to get across to people though that accountability and being able to take responsibility for that in your life can be very freeing to you. And when you're not pointing those fingers at people and being the key thing though is the brutal honesty with yourself. Now,
Mhm.
when I say that, I mean I was brutally honest with myself really over 40 years ago when I started making some major changes in my life. And I had to look myself in the mirror and realize and admit to myself, you're a jerk.
Boy,
I
isn't that
was.
humbling, Jeff?
Oh my God, Roderick, it's like now I tell people, I said, listen, I realized I am not all that a bag of chips and a bowl of grits. I'm not.
Mhm.
I'm just a pebble on the sand of life, man. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
And realizing that all the old adages, the ego is easing God out, or you know those types of things, and being able to realize that and admit it. That's where a lot of people, I think, fail to realize that how empowering it can be to them to admit it to themselves that you're not all that.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have a hard time really liking themselves. A lot of people
Oh.
love themselves, including myself, and early in my career in life, probably a little too much. I loved myself. But I think there's a lot of people that have a hard time looking in the mirror and really saying, I like the person I'm looking at. And at that point is what I think where accountability starts to come in. When you can say, I like me, because now you got to say why I like myself versus you're not going to say why I don't like myself.
Exactly. Exactly. I asked, excuse me, I asked a question of a group I was presenting to one time. I said, how many of you guys can start naming off some people that you like, admire, and respect in your life? And every one of them raised their hand. As we kept going, I said, I'll get back to that. And about being accountable and being responsible and stuff. I say, back to that list. I said, how far down that list did you have to go till you showed up on the list? And boy, that floored them. I
Mhm.
said, because I have to admit, yes, you put me off in a room somewhere, I can entertain myself. I'm my own best friend sometimes when I need to be. I don't have to be reliable on other people to
Right.
be okay. And that was a huge change for me too, because growing up, I was sort of not clingy, but needy. I needed someone to tell me I was okay. I needed someone's acceptance. Today, I don't need it. It's enjoyable. I love being around people. I love being accepted by people, and the camaraderie like you and I have
Yeah.
when
It's
we're
not a
out
daily
being able to
requirement,
share
right?
a cup of coffee and stuff with each other. That that human connection is essential.
Mhm.
But there's times when it's not there. I don't have to go looking for it.
Yeah. I think because a lot of people that I've talked to and met throughout my life, and as a matter of fact, it's what I'm calling my third book, which I know I told you I'm not going to write another book, but I found that it's in me. And I remember you saying yes,
Never
you
say
will.
never, dude. That's
Yes,
why I
you
live in
will.
Orlando. At 30 for 30 years, 34 years ago, I said I'd never live here. I've been here 30 years. Never say never. Learn that lesson.
The title of the book will be Lonely in a Crowded Room.
Oh, I like it.
And
I
I think
like
that
it.
just fits for so many places. And it's why I think people have a hard time getting to like themselves because
Oh my gosh, yes.
they never
Well,
spend time by themselves
I
because
saw
they're
a
not
book.
comfortable with who they are. So they
Exactly.
create,
Well,
like I did,
yeah,
they create personas, they create characters.
that's where years ago I was with a group of people, and a guy that was there was reading a book, and I was going through some of that stuff. And
Mhm.
I looked over, and the title of the book was Lonely People Are Lonely Because They Have Not Learned to Live with Themselves. And I
I
went,
love that. Yeah.
wow. That
Yeah.
hit me like a ton of bricks,
Yeah. That'll
you
stop
know?
you in your tracks.
Oh, yeah, because I hadn't learned to be my own best friend.
Mhm.
I hadn't learned to like myself.
There's that point from earlier.
And that way, exactly, that way when you're clinging or you surround yourself with other people, you don't have to look at yourself. You don't have to look at them three fingers that's pointing back at you.
Because you're enough.
Exactly. I am enough. It's like I've told people before, and hopefully people listening to this, have some sort of belief system in their life, but God don't make no junk,
No,
and I wasn't put here to be anybody's doormat either.
no,
I love it when
absolutely
people say, well, you can't do that. I look at them and go, you better hide and watch.
not. Just
Tell
why?
me I can't do it.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
one of
Grab
the
a pen
cool
and a
things.
pad because you're gonna learn something now.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That was funny. You said it like that. I was in Las Vegas for the conference, same conference I'm going to next week, actually.
Mhm.
Stepped in the elevator, and there were five young people in there. And I called them young because I used to say kids, but I know they were all below 30. So they were definitely younger than me and
Okay,
you.
they're still kids.
And there were two young ladies and three young men. And when we got to the bottom floor, doors open. One of the young ladies, she said, "Go ahead." And I looked at her. I said, "No, ma'am." I said, "Ladies first." And as she walked by me, she goes, "Can you teach them something?" And I said, "I think I just did if they were paying attention."
Oh, I love that.
So sometimes you teach by being an example, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
And sometimes it's what not to do. That's what I used to
So
do.
funny. I was
Teaching
just
people
about to
what
say
not
that.
to do.
My
You
mama used to
know
say, "You learn how to, or you learn how not to. Either way, you
exactly.
learn, but one hurts more than the
Oh yeah, it was always attributed to John Wayne. I don't know that I've never heard him say it, so I say it's attributed to him.
other." Hmm.
They said life's tough. It's even tougher if you're stupid. And I said, ain't that the truth?
There's some
You
truth
know,
to that.
and it is. And sometimes I heard one the other day said, stupid should hurt.
Ye- Well,
It
I
makes a
always
better
say
life lesson, man.
huge life lessons. I always say that
Huge.
I have met a lot of intelligently stupid people. Really, really intelligent, just not very smart.
Well, it's funny you say that because I remember reading in LinkedIn one time, and because I don't take myself too seriously, and I know that I'm not all that in a bag of chips.
Mhm.
Somebody posted and said, if you can't look back at your younger self and think, I was an idiot, you might still be an idiot.
You're probably still an idiot.
And this one woman replied, she goes, I was never an idiot. Now, there were times that I did unwise things in my life, but I was never an idiot. And I sat there and I went, yeah, you're still an idiot.
You're still an idiot.
You're still an
You
idiot.
just proved my point right now.
Exactly. Because, and that's not only it's not really condemning yourself or being,
No,
the condemnation
it's
for
being
yourself.
self-aware.
It's being self-aware. And it's like, if you can't poke fun at yourself, who's going to? I make fun of myself all the time, So even in one of our, I don't think he belongs to the Speakers Association, but he's a speaker and an author. He actually had lunch with me one time in Washington State, and I invited him to sit in and listen to me talk because I was giving a talk.
Mhm.
And he decided he was going to make a critique of pros and cons. I said, well, that's not why I invited you to lunch. He
I
goes, I
invite
know.
you here to
He said,
critique
I'm
me.
doing this as your friend. I said, okay. And he told me, he said, man, your self-deprecating humor is awesome. Because I started off the talk. I said, for those of y'all that know me and those that are getting to know me, I said, can you believe they only gave me 30 minutes to talk? I
I
can
love
barely
that.
get warmed up, man, in 30
Love
minutes,
that.
you know? But I truly am blessed, not only with the situation with my brother, that everybody has reached out to me, you included. And I am so blessed to be surrounded by some wonderful people in my life. And I just cannot get over that. I mean, I had a flower box show up here the other day. Somebody ordered me some teacup roses rather
Wow.
than flowers. They said this way, when they bloom every year and you plant them in the yard, you can think about your brother. And that type of thought that goes into something instead of just the routine, oh,
Yeah.
just send flowers.
Yeah.
They put some thought into it. And somebody else, when my mother passed years ago, I've got a lemon tree in my yard that they sent me. So now when it makes lemons, I can think about my mom. So
Love that.
those being intentional in life, which I'm learning too, as part of the Speakers Association and with John Maxwell,
Mhm.
because John is very adamant about that. You have to be intentional in your life, and being intentional in keeping friendships like you and I've got going.
Yeah.
And I
Absolutely.
think we met on Stephen's strategic speaker call.
Absolutely. On
Yeah,
his Friday
Friday
mastermind.
call. I'll be on there tomorrow before I have to
I'll
jump
be
a
there
plane
with
and
you.
go to Dallas tomorrow night. So but meeting people on there and being able to see them in face to face sometimes, that's an awesome thing in creating that network because, like they say, you're the sum of or the average of the five people you hang around with. And I'm gonna
Absolutely.
tell you what, them ones I used to hang around with,
Yeah.
not good. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. I've been in the negative as well with my circle around me. So don't feel, you know what? Something just hit me again. And that is because we're both part of National Speakers Association, there's also another chapter called the Black NSA, right?
hmm
And
Yep.
our tagline is family by choice.
Amen.
And that is how I define the people that some of the 5 or 10 people in my circle that definitely include you, my friend. And
I
that is
appreciate that.
family by choice. Because look,
Exactly.
because we're businessmen and because we're extroverts a little bit, right, Jeff? Just a
A
little
little
bit.
bit, just a little bit,
Just a wee bit.
just a little
And
bit.
because we're speakers, we run into people all the time, every day. And some
Absolutely.
people come and go. Some people are taught, are here for a reason. Some are here for a season, and some are here to teach us when it's time to move to the next chapter in life.
Absolutely.
But that
Absolutely.
that family by choice are people that you may not have DNA, but you're forever connected. And
Oh,
for me,
absolutely.
I'm at the age and stage now where it's not about connections. I've got 20,000 followers. That means nothing. They could pass me in the airport. I wouldn't know 'em. But when you're connecting, that's when you start creating and cultivating those, not just networks, but those relationships. And then finally, those family by choice.
Oh, absolutely. And all that comes from the heart, man.
Yeah.
You have to be pure of heart to be able to make those types of connections. Because if you're always in there as a taker instead of a
Mhm.
giver, it's I saw this not too long. Somebody posted it, said if you want to see the difference between a taker and if a person was a taker or a giver, said if they pass, go to their funeral. If they're a taker, people won't stick around long. They'll just come pay
Mhm.
their respects and they'll leave. But if they're a giver, people will stand around and tell stories for a long time. You know,
It's
and I
interesting.
know, yeah, I've seen that before, you know?
Interesting you say that because after my stroke, where I coded, I died, and I was brought back. I had a conversation with my wife, and it may sound morbid to some, but for a guy that's died and been brought back, it's something that you think about every day. And I said to my wife at my funeral, first of all, I don't want a body because I don't want them to see who I was, but I want this to be focused on just the emotions. And I said, no one can talk about any speech that I ever gave. They can't talk about any book that I've written, and they can't talk about anything other than how I left them with the feelings and how they felt after we had interaction. Those are the stories that I want them telling because that is legacy. And there's a lot of people saying, but I'm focused on building my legacy. You don't build your
You
legacy.
don't build your legacy, man.
You live it. We've heard people,
Those are
I'm
takers,
building my
man.
legacy. I'm going to leave the house. I'm going to leave money. No, 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 no. You are living your testimony, but you're also living your legacy for what passes on to the next generations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll tell you, because my brother was into holistic medicine. He was an herbal supplement guy and he got a doctorate in holistic medicine. Couple of people, they literally made a point to come up to me, and one lady that just blew me away. She could not say enough kind things about my brother, that she had two daughters, and I don't even remember her name, but she had two daughters, and over the last few years, they had 5 miscarriages between two of them.
That's
She
hard.
got hooked up with my brother, and he did some evaluations because he didn't claim to be a doctor, but he said, their bodies are missing this, and he put them on an herbal supplement regimen of three different types of herbal supplements, and she now has 3 grandchildren.
That's
So
amazing.
she couldn't. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And I put a book out. I said, if my brother impacted your life, please leave me a story so I can take that and share it with my
Now that I
family
love.
in Texas. And some of them did. So that type of thing, you're right. You don't build a legacy, but back to your thing earlier about family by choice. I don't know if I've told you this story. In October of last year, I got invited to go to a wedding in South Florida.
Yes, you did tell me.
Absolutely. I did tell you about this. It was a great story. It was awesome because, my wife goes, she's looking around as all the guests are coming in. She goes, are we? I said, yep, we're the only white folks here. And I told the bride and groom, and I said, you have no idea how blessed I feel being here today. I said, because I grew up in the South in the 60s and stuff when things were not nice. And I did not cling on to that stuff. I moved past that and now deal with people based on how they treat me and how they treat others.
Yeah.
And that's the way that I am, and it's like, my dad said too one time, he said, just be nice to people until they get, I'm going to use a different word, until they get crappy with you. And then you teach them how to spell it and the proper definition of it.
Absolutely.
And that's the way I do, and so, and sometimes in life, when it comes to, you're talking about the negative people, sometimes you don't have to be mad. You don't have to be upset. Just be done and know that that's not your life anymore. And that's where you're accountable to yourself because you have the choice to move on. You don't have to stay in that situation. And that's where that mentality that I grew up in, I didn't stay there. I moved on past that. And it made a world of difference in my life. That's why I've been adopted by some of Les Brown's daughters, man. I'm Uncle Jeff now, and it's a very cool place to be in my life.
It's a great place to be.
It is. It absolutely is, So, and met a new young man in New Orleans that was at the conference for the Thrive conference. And Willie Jolly's one of his mentors. And he was able to have lunch with him while I was in New Orleans. Had lunch with another friend of mine. I actually posted about his new book, and he's not a member of the Speakers Association, but he's a speaker and an author. And he writes great books, very thought-provoking books. And those are the type of conversations I love because, and back to your point earlier about how you made people feel, that's what Maya Angelou said. People won't remember what you said or what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel.
Oh, 100%.
And that's what it's 100% correct, so. Yeah. Well, my friend, we are coming at the end of our time here. So if you had one piece of advice that you could impart to the audience about how they might start holding themselves accountable or people in their lives accountable, what would you say?
I'm going to give you a bonus. I've got 2. One is learn to give, things we've been talking about. because that accountability comes from the fact that I can push out, and I've realized it may not come back, and it's probably not going to be equal or balanced. By the way, I
Mhm.
always say, and you've heard me say it, fair is not an adult word. Fair
Nope.
went out when mama used to parse out M&Ms one by one. Those days are long gone, right? So learn to give to give. And the second piece is something that was just sparked by the story you were telling. The accountability comes from we choose who's going to be in our, who we allow in our inner circle.
Mhm.
And never, ever, ever, ever forget that the planet is a really small neighborhood. You
Oh
don't
yeah.
know whose friend, cousin, uncle, nephew that you're talking to. Treat them like people. They're not projects, they're not deliverables, they're not, you know, all the other things we say, right? They're not human capital. I hate that because capital
Oh,
is disposable and replaceable.
absolutely.
And the world, the planet is a really small neighborhood. Be nice to everybody because you're creating, again, that culture that you want around you. And we used to think that culture is what happens when nobody is watching. I'm going to change that. Culture is what happens when everybody is watching.
Absolutely. That's how you make an impact. I
Mhm.
totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. Well, Roderick, thanks for being on the show. I can't wait to get a copy of the book. And I will be posting. I'm going to start posting at the end of it when I drop these episodes. I'm going to be tagging you with your website and that type of stuff.
I've
Your
got
LinkedIn profile and
a
stuff.
document I'll send you with all my show notes to make it easy for
All
you.
right, sounds good, man. And I'll add it to the end of the video reels. What I'm going to start doing, so any of our guests can reach out to you if they want to. So, thanks for being here,
And
my friend. I will see you soon.
absolutely.